Hello everyone, we're going to quickly go over summaries. This is for public forum. So as a quick overview, a summary is the third type of speech in public forum. So if you're the first speaker of your team, you would be giving the summary. It is a 3-minute speech, and this is arguably the most difficult debate speech, but it is very doable. So the purpose of the summary is the name. You provide a summary of what is going on in the round, and you kind of need to think about it as the person that's judging you. The person that's judging you has probably heard a lot of arguments in Crossfire, rebuttals, and your constructives. And you have to kind of condense that down into these small things that really matter to you. So you kind of want to condense it, make it a lot more easier for the judge to understand what is going on. There are 3 steps to a summary that you should do when you give your speech. And we're going to talk about everything specifically. The first is something called collapsing on specific arguments. The second thing is addressing things said in rebuttal. And the third thing is picking specific parts of the rebuttal your partner talked about. So collapse. Here's what collapse is. As you know, on the PF condition packet, or you guys probably created your own, you have maybe 2 to 3 arguments. You probably have 1 to 3 arguments. If you have 1 argument, this part of it doesn't apply to you too much. So let's say you're reading 2 to 3 arguments. What you would do is something collapsing. In your summary, you don't really want to summarize all 3 of your contentions because that will take a long time. You're wasting a lot of time. It's not worth it. What you'd instead do is you'd pick one of your arguments, one of the arguments that you think is really strong, that you really like, or the one argument you think that your opponents really don't understand or they really responded too well. In your summary, when you collapse, you would choose that one argument you like the best, re-explain it to the judge, and explain why it's important. So let's say I'm on the pro and I like the argument about deterrence and I decide to go for that. I would give a quick re-explanation of deterrence and then maybe try to address what the opponent said, or if they said nothing, you don't really need to do much. But that is the first step of your summary, which is collapsing. Here's a quick thing to note. Frontlining. This you don't need to fully know as much, but if you do want to take an extra step forward, I would recommend you do this. So obviously, let's say your opponents are super good and they read a couple responses to your contention. So let's say we read the argument that NATO troops will deter a Russian invasion, and the opponents come up and read 3 separate responses. Frontlining is when you respond to these responses. So as you can see on the right, as a scenario, if we get 3 responses that Russia does not care about the Baltics, NATO troops scare Russia, and why didn't Russia invade before, frontlining would mean I or you, whoever, would frontline or respond to those responses. That's what frontlining means. Now, the second step of a summary is acknowledging your partner's rebuttal. So, obviously in a debate, you're not the only side that has arguments. Your opponents do as well. So if I read deterrence, the con might read retaliation. In your summary, your partner's probably read, let's say, 4 responses to their arguments. As the summary, you pick 1 to 2, maybe 3, I would not do 3, but 1 to 2 responses that you think are the best, that you think completely take out their argument, and you just want to re-explain that to the judge. This more formally is called extending responses, but in this case, summarize those responses, explain why those responses matter and why you've picked them, and just say why this takes out their arguments. As an example, this is a long example. I'm not going to go through everything. But let's say you read the argument about retaliation and trade-offs. You have your opponent's rebuttal and your partner's rebuttal. Let's specifically look at the partner's rebuttal, which is right here. Let's say there's 4 responses here and here. What I would do in my summary is, let's say I like this response that Russia does not care about the Baltics, and I also like this response that NATO has never put infrastructure before. In that case, in my summary, I would re-explain my arguments and also address the partner's rebuttal by extending this response specifically, as well as this response. And when I say extend, as usual, I also mean re-explain it. So as a quick overview of what summaries do, you pretty much have 2 to 3 jobs, depending on how you want to take it. The first job of the summary is to collapse. You have 2 to 3 arguments maybe, and you want to collapse on one specific argument that you like the most and you're winning. If you only read one argument, just re-explain that one argument. Your second/third step Your second step, which could be included in the first step, is you want to address the opponent's rebuttal. Let's say they make the response in deterrence that Russia will not invade the Baltics because they don't care about it. Frontlining is you respond to that rebuttal. It's layers on layers. And that's an extra step, and if you guys do not understand how to do it, it's fine. But then the third step, which you should do, is your opponents have their own arguments, right? They have some other argument that they read that they might like. As the summary speaker, you need to re-explain responses that you think are the best. Remember, don't choose all 4 responses if your partner read 4 responses. Choose 1 to 2 that you think are the best. And as a quick reminder, summaries are 3 minutes, so you don't have to speak on and on and on, but at the same time, you do want to get enough content in. I hope this makes sense. If you have any questions, please ask, and good luck at the competition.